What if you could stop leg cramps instantly, without pills, without pain, and without ever seeing a doctor again? That's the question that exploded across social media, lighting up comment sections and sparking debates in Facebook groups, Reddit threads, and even YouTube health channels. It wasn't a doctor or fitness guru asking the question, it was Elon Musk. Yes, the Tesla guy. In a world where billionaires are building rockets and AI is rewriting the rules of life, no one expected the tech world's most unpredictable visionary to suddenly shift his attention to leg cramps. But in a recent live stream, Musk casually mentioned a 3-food combo he claimed could eliminate night cramps in less than 72 hours. He wasn't joking. The video clip went viral within hours. And that's where our story begins. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? For 72-year-old Eleanor James, the moment she heard Musk speak those words, something clicked. Eleanor had always been healthy. She'd raised 3 children, worked as a nurse for over 30 years, and until recently, took daily morning walks around her Connecticut neighborhood. But over the past year, her life had started to shrink. The walks turned to slow strolls, then short drives, and eventually, just looking out the window. All because of one thing, leg cramps. Sharp, sudden, brutal. They started small, an occasional twinge at night. Then came the full-blown spasms that woke her at 2 a.m., her calf muscles clenched like iron fists. She'd lie in the dark, tears welling in her eyes, gripping the edge of her bed in silence. Her doctors told her it was common with age. One even said, just stay hydrated and try stretching. That felt like telling a drowning person to breathe more deeply. Over time, Eleanor began to feel like her world was closing in. Every day was shadowed by the fear of pain. Every trip to the grocery store carried the dread of a sudden cramp striking mid-aisle. She started carrying around pain relief patches, compression socks, even a foldable cane she swore she'd never use. So when she saw the headline, Elon Musk says these 3 foods can stop leg cramps, seniors love number 2. She did something she hadn't done in months. She felt hope. It didn't hurt that Eleanor had always been a fan of Musk, even if she didn't always understand what he was building. Her grandson, Tyler, was obsessed with SpaceX, and Eleanor had once spent an entire Thanksgiving pretending to know what a Falcon 9 rocket was. But she admired Elon's boldness, his disregard for rules. If anyone was going to break the rules of aging, it might be him. She clicked on the video. Musk was sitting in a minimalist chair, black shirt, arms crossed, casually discussing the concept of nutritional biohacks. At one point, he said, "It's not just about tech anymore. It's about human energy. If we want to build a future on Mars, we've got to make sure people on Earth can sleep through the night without their legs trying to kill them." The audience laughed. He smiled. "There are 3 foods I started using daily that stopped my night cramps. Completely. And when I shared them with my mom, who's in her 70s, she said it was like flipping a switch. She hasn't had one since." That's when Eleanor sat up straighter in her recliner. Of course, the video didn't immediately list the foods. Typical. Instead, it teased them through Musk storytelling, tying each food to a nutrient deficiency most doctors overlook: magnesium, potassium, and bioavailable antioxidants. But it wasn't just about getting more bananas or leafy greens. It was specific. Strategic. And maybe, a little bit genius. Eleanor grabbed a pen. The first food? Musk leaned forward and whispered it like a secret. Tart cherry juice. Real tart cherries. They're not just for taste, they have compounds that target neuromuscular tension. The second? He smiled. Avocados. Everyone thinks they're trendy, but they're loaded with magnesium and potassium, the exact mix your nervous system needs to calm those rogue muscle firings. And the third? He paused for effect. Pumpkin seeds. A handful a day. They're a magnesium bomb. I take them like people take vitamins. Eleanor stared at the screen. Tart cherries. Avocados. Pumpkin seeds. Not pills. Not prescriptions. Just food. Could it really be that simple? Later that evening, Eleanor opened her fridge. She didn't have tart cherry juice, but she made a list. She wasn't going to waste time. Tomorrow morning, she'd be at the store. She texted her daughter, Anna. Hey honey, ever heard of tart cherry juice for leg cramps? Elon Musk swears by it. I'm giving it a try. Anna replied 3 minutes later. LOL, only you would try Elon Musk's moon juice, but let me know if it works. But Eleanor wasn't laughing. For the first time in months, she felt like she had a plan. Not a maybe. Not a guess. A real plan. That night, she slept a little easier. The cramps still came, but somehow, knowing she was going to fight back made the pain more bearable. Because sometimes, the solution is simpler, and closer, than we think. Eleanor James wasn't the type to complain. Born in 1952 in a small New Hampshire town, she was raised with the kind of values people don't talk about much anymore: grit, grace, and quiet endurance. Her father worked construction, her mother kept the home and volunteered at church. Eleanor was the oldest of 4, the one who bandaged scraped knees, helped with math homework, and made dinner when her mom had migraines. She became a nurse in 1974, back when nurses still wore white skirts and folded caps. She worked the night shift at a city hospital for over 3 decades, calming new mothers, holding the hands of patients in pain, and becoming a quiet expert in the art of showing up, even when no one else did. Maybe that's why the leg cramps felt like such a betrayal. They didn't hit all at once. At first, it was just a twitch in the calf when she got up too fast. Then it became a sharp pull while she slept, one that sent her shooting out of bed, gasping. By the time she turned 70, Eleanor was having these episodes almost every night. Her sleep was wrecked. Her mornings started with exhaustion and frustration, and her world began to shrink without her fully realizing it. She stopped going to yoga. Then she stopped volunteering at the church thrift store. When her youngest granddaughter had a piano recital across town, she said she wasn't feeling well and stayed home. The truth was, she was terrified of getting a cramp while sitting in the folding chair, unable to stretch it out. Her independence, something she'd worked her whole life to maintain, was slipping. It wasn't just the pain. It was the loss of control. You see, Eleanor had spent her whole life being the caregiver. Her husband, Ron, had passed from cancer 12 years ago, and she'd nursed him through it all, without ever asking for help. Her kids, all grown now, often joked that, "Mom's tougher than all of us combined." They weren't wrong. But when the cramps started, she didn't feel tough anymore. She felt small. Alone. Tired. Eleanor tried everything people recommended. She stretched before bed. Drank more water. Took over-the-counter magnesium supplements that upset her stomach. She tried foam rollers, heating pads, cold packs. One night, she even slept with a bar of soap under her sheets, an old wives' tale she found on a Facebook group. Nothing worked. Worse, every time she brought it up to her doctor, he brushed it off. "That's common with aging," he'd say. "Just keep doing what you're doing." But that was the problem, what she was doing wasn't working. Eleanor started keeping a journal to track the pain. On one page she wrote in bold black pen, "I don't feel like myself anymore. My body feels like it belongs to someone else." Despite all this, Eleanor never showed how scared she really was. To her family, she was still Grandma Ellie, baking pies and sending birthday cards with $20 bills tucked inside. When her daughter, Anna, asked how she was feeling, Eleanor always replied, "Oh, I'm fine. Just a little tired." But inside, she wasn't fine. She missed walking to the corner bakery. She missed laughing with the other women at water aerobics. She missed moving without fear. She missed the version of herself that didn't flinch every time she shifted in bed. One Sunday afternoon, her 10-year-old grandson Tyler came over with his iPad and a head full of SpaceX trivia. "Grandma, did you know Elon Musk is building a rocket that can land itself?" She smiled, amused by his excitement. "Is that so?" "Yeah. And he said he might move to Mars one day." Eleanor laughed. "Mars sounds cold." "No way. He's gonna build heated domes. And robots will do all the hard work." That night, after Tyler left, Eleanor did something she hadn't done in years. She opened YouTube. She typed "Elon Musk rocket landing," just to see what her grandson was talking about. One video turned into another. Then another. Somehow, through the endless scroll of space documentaries and electric car reveals, she landed on the video. Elon Musk talking about leg cramps. It was surreal. This man who made rocket boosters reusable was now talking about her problem. Her pain. That's when the question hit her. What if you could stop leg cramps instantly, without pills, without pain, and without ever seeing a doctor again? For the first time in a long while, she leaned forward, not from pain, but from curiosity. Maybe that's what hope is. Not a grand gesture. Not a miracle cure. Just a spark. Something that flickers in the dark and makes you think, maybe tomorrow will be different. As she stared at the list of foods Musk recommended, tart cherry juice, avocados, pumpkin seeds, she felt that flicker grow. Could something so simple make that much of a difference? She didn't know yet. But she was ready to find out. The next morning, Eleanor stood in the grocery store, staring at a shelf lined with tart cherry juice bottles. Some had added sugar. Some were labeled, "from concentrate." Others were organic, with price tags that made her raise an eyebrow. "This better work," she muttered under her breath, grabbing the smallest bottle of the purest stuff she could find. She added 2 ripe avocados and a bag of roasted pumpkin seeds to her cart. No multivitamins. No pain creams. Just 3 things. A teenage cashier smiled politely as she rang up the items. "Trying something new?" she asked. Eleanor smiled. "You could say that." Back at home, she placed the 3 foods on the kitchen counter like sacred relics. They didn't look revolutionary. But something about the simplicity made her feel like she might have found the secret she'd been searching for. That night, she poured herself half a glass of tart cherry juice. It was tart, all right. Her lips puckered, and she chuckled. "You'd better be magic." She mashed half an avocado onto a slice of whole grain toast, something she used to do back when it was trendy. And then, almost ceremonially, she ate a handful of pumpkin seeds while watching the local news. When she got into bed, she wasn't expecting a miracle. But she was expecting something. A sign. A twitch that didn't come. A spasm that backed off. Anything. Midway through the night, her eyes snapped open. Cramp. Her right calf twisted like a wrung towel, and she gasped. Throwing the covers off and sitting up fast, massaging it with both hands. It wasn't as sharp as usual, but it was still there. Still awful. Still enough to bring her close to tears. "So much for that," she whispered. She sat on the edge of her bed for a long time, staring into the dark, wondering if she'd just fallen for some overhyped billionaire wellness gimmick. The next morning, she felt the dull ache in her calf muscle as she made her coffee. The optimism she'd felt the day before was gone. Doubt crept in fast. Maybe my doctor was right. Maybe this is just how it is when you get old. But even as she thought it, something in her fought back. A stubborn streak, the same one that carried her through 12-hour hospital shifts and raising 3 kids without a single complaint. She poured another glass of tart cherry juice. The next few days were the same. Cramps still came, though they were slightly less severe. Barely noticeable at first. She wasn't convinced it was the food. Maybe just a coincidence. Or maybe wishful thinking. Still, she stuck with it. By day 4, she realized she'd slept through the night. No cramps. No waking up in agony. Just a gentle sunrise filtering through the curtains. Ha! She didn't celebrate. She didn't trust it yet. That afternoon, Eleanor joined her neighborhood walking group for the first time in weeks. The group met every Tuesday at 3 p.m., mostly older women like herself, wearing pastel windbreakers and sensible sneakers. Eleanor. "We've missed you," called out Margaret, her bubbly neighbor with a permanent visor tan. "Thought you'd retired from walking," joked Sharon. Eleanor laughed. "I've been dealing with something," she said, keeping it vague. As they walked around the loop, she noticed her legs felt lighter. Less tense. The old ache in her calves didn't threaten to seize up with every step. It felt good, better than she'd expected. The other women chatted about grandkids and knee replacements, but Eleanor stayed quiet, quietly tracking each muscle in her leg for the smallest sign of rebellion. None came. Back home, she opened her journal and wrote something she hadn't dared to before. Day 4, no cramp. Walked 1.2 miles. Felt strong. Still cautious. But, maybe. Then, at the very bottom of the page, she underlined one word. Hope. But as with any healing journey, the progress wasn't linear. That night, the cramps returned. Not full-blown. But just enough to wake her. Just enough to scare her. Like her body was reminding her not to get too comfortable. She sat on the edge of her bed, rubbing her legs, frustrated. "This isn't supposed to be like this," she whispered to the dark. "You said it would stop." She was angry. At herself, at Musk, at her own body for betraying her again. She thought about quitting. What was the point of drinking that juice and eating that toast if her legs were still going to twist like barbed wire in the middle of the night? But just as quickly as the frustration rose, something else returned. That damn stubbornness. She wouldn't give up. Not yet. Not after 4 good days out of 5. She remembered her nursing days, how healing was never a straight line. People took time. Bodies needed space. And this was just another kind of patient to care for. Her own self. The next morning, she opened her phone and rewatched Musk's video. At one point he said something she hadn't noticed before. Most people quit before they see the full effect. That's the tragedy. Your body isn't a light switch, it's a system. Systems don't reboot in one night. Eleanor smiled softly to herself. Fine. Let's give it a system reboot. This chapter closes with Eleanor committed but cautious, still in pain, but beginning to see the early signs of transformation. In the next chapter, we'll follow her as she experiences the first significant progress, and a deeper dive into the science behind Musk's 3-food solution. She's about to realize she's not just part of a diet change. She's on the edge of something much bigger. Eleanor sat at her kitchen table, laptop open, mug of herbal tea steaming at her side. A half-eaten avocado toast lay on her plate. The last 5 days had been a strange blend of frustration, curiosity, and something she hadn't felt in months, momentum. She typed Elon Musk leg cramp foods into Google again. She'd already watched the video twice, but this time, she noticed the link to a long-form interview, not a flashy clip, but a deep-dive discussion Musk gave during a health tech summit in Austin. She clicked it. The setting was simple, a wide stage, dark background, 2 chairs. Musk sat in one, leaned back, legs crossed, like a man with nowhere to be and everything to say. The interviewer, a gray-haired physician-turned-podcaster named Dr. Lane, leaned forward. "So, Elon, you've revolutionized space, electric cars, and artificial intelligence. But last month, you posted about 3 foods that stopped your leg cramps. That's a surprising pivot. Musk smirked. Pain makes you focus real fast. The audience chuckled. I'd get these random leg cramps in the middle of the night. Bad ones. Couldn't sleep. Thought I was dehydrated. Turned out, I was just nutritionally stupid. Eleanor nodded. She knew that feeling well. Musk continued. I have access to the world's best doctors. But not one of them could fix it. They offered pills, massages, even low-level electrical stimulation. Nothing stuck. He leaned forward slightly. But then I met a neuroscientist who told me something wild. Most muscle cramps, especially in older adults, aren't caused by movement or hydration. They're caused by microdeficiencies in cellular minerals. And those deficiencies are correctable. Fast. That got Eleanor's attention. So he gave me 3 foods, Musk said. Not supplements. Not prescriptions. Real food. Tart cherry juice for anti-inflammatory compounds and muscle recovery. Avocados for magnesium and potassium. And pumpkin seeds, because they pack more usable magnesium than a pharmacy bottle, without the side effects. Dr. Lane interrupted. So, how long before you noticed a difference? Musk didn't even pause. 2 days. Night cramps vanished. My mother, May, started using them too. She's 76. Had them for years. Gone. Gone? The doctor asked. Like someone flipped a switch. Eleanor sat back in her chair, absorbing every word. It wasn't just that Musk had results. It was the way he spoke about it. Calm, factual, almost annoyed that something so simple could be so effective, and so overlooked. She paused the video and opened a new tab. Pumpkin seeds magnesium content. Answer, 168 milligrams per ounce. More than half of her daily needs. She clicked again. Tart cherry juice and muscle recovery. Dozens of studies popped up, articles from NIH, Mayo Clinic, and even sports science journals. Apparently, elite athletes drank the stuff to reduce inflammation and improve muscle function. Why didn't my doctor know about this? She whispered. That question stuck with her. For decades, she had trusted medical professionals without question. As a nurse, she believed in evidence. Protocol. Data. But what if, the problem wasn't a lack of care, but a lack of curiosity? What if the answers had always been there, just outside the rigid walls of traditional medicine? She picked up her journal and wrote. Musk didn't invent this, he just listened to people who weren't being heard. Maybe that's what it takes. Later that day, her daughter Anna called. Hey Mom, how's the space food working? Eleanor laughed. It's not space food. It's real food. Anne. I think it's actually helping. Seriously? I slept through the night twice this week. No way. Way. A pause. Should I be eating this stuff too? Eleanor smiled. Can't hurt. She ended the call and looked at her phone background, a photo of her 3 grandkids at the beach. A wave of determination washed over her. If this worked, if these foods were really changing her body, it wasn't enough to just keep it to herself. Other people needed to know. Not just other seniors, but their kids. Their caretakers. Doctors. Coaches. Anyone who thought pain was just part of getting older. It wasn't. That night, as she cleaned her kitchen and lined up her Musk foods on the counter, juice, avocado, seeds, Eleanor felt something she hadn't in a long time. Purpose. It wasn't just about leg cramps anymore. It was about reclaiming ownership of her body, her energy, her future. She wasn't going to wait for permission or another prescription. She was taking control. The camera now zooms out. Because this isn't just Eleanor's journey. Across the country, thousands of others had started trying Musk's formula. TikTok videos were going viral. Wellness bloggers were jumping in. Musk meals were trending in retirement forums. And for the first time in years, seniors weren't just talking about what was wrong with them. They were sharing what was working. Back on YouTube, the interviewer leaned toward Elon with a final question. What would you say to people who are still skeptical? Who think 3 foods can't fix something like this? Musk didn't blink. Try it for 5 days. If you still get cramps, fine. But if they stop, and they probably will, remember this, your body wants to heal. You just have to give it the right tools. Eleanor closed her laptop and whispered to herself. I'm giving it the tools. Tomorrow, she'd try a new variation, adding a second serving of pumpkin seeds before bed. She was learning how her body responded. Tuning in, like adjusting the dial on an old radio. The signal was getting clearer. Stronger. And for the first time in over a year, she was starting to believe. By the end of week 2, Eleanor was walking farther, sleeping longer, and, for the first time in over a year, not dreading bedtime. She wasn't fully cured. The cramps still whispered threats some nights, but they never followed through. She stretched each morning, downed her tart cherry juice like clockwork, ate her avocado toast, and tossed pumpkin seeds into everything, salads, smoothies, even oatmeal. It was working. Or so it seemed. Then came Friday night. Her daughter Anna was visiting with the kids, and dinner turned into a last-minute pizza party. Eleanor hesitated when her grandson offered her a second slice. She glanced at the untouched avocado in her fruit bowl, then back at the gooey, perfect slice of pepperoni. One night won't matter, she told herself. She skipped the cherry juice too. It wasn't out of rebellion, it just slipped her mind. The evening was warm, the conversation good. She was laughing, standing longer without pain, chasing Tyler around the living room like she hadn't done in ages. She felt normal again. That night, she went to bed smiling. At 3:17 a.m., it hit. A cramp so violent it felt like her leg was being wrung out from the inside. Her foot twisted outward involuntarily, toes stiff like wood. The pain was blinding, sharp, and fast. She gasped, then screamed. Anna came running from the guest room. Mom. What is it? My leg, it's cramp, bad. Anna knelt beside the bed, trying to massage the muscle as Eleanor whimpered. Her breaths were shallow, fast. She clenched the blanket in her fists. It hasn't done this in weeks, Eleanor said through gritted teeth. Did you eat the stuff today? Eleanor blinked. No. I didn't. Not once. Later, with the pain dulling to a throb, Eleanor sat on the edge of the bed, wiping her forehead with a damp towel. Anna brought her water. You okay? Eleanor nodded slowly, ashamed. I thought I was better. Thought it was gone. Mom, you're not a machine. This isn't about perfection. No, she whispered, but I got cocky. That night broke something. Not her belief in the foods, but her illusion of control. She'd started to think of the cramps as a thing of the past. She'd let her guard down, thinking maybe she'd graduated from this part of her journey. But now she knew the truth. This wasn't a magic trick. It was a practice. The next morning, Eleanor sat at her kitchen table, a cold pack on her leg, laptop open. She typed. Can leg cramps come back if you stop tart cherry juice? The first article hit like a punch. Chronic cramps can return quickly if dietary changes are paused. These foods don't cure, they support ongoing balance. Of course. It made sense. You can't water a plant once and expect it to bloom forever. She went back to Musk's interview. This time, she noticed something new. It's not a one-time fix, Musk had said. It's like brushing your teeth. You don't stop just because they're white again. Eleanor exhaled sharply. She was doing it again, treating this like an emergency instead of a lifestyle. She picked up her phone and opened her notes app. New rule. Green circle: no skipping days. Green circle: no cheat weekends. Green circle: this isn't a diet. It's medicine in disguise. That afternoon, she walked 2 laps around the park. Her legs still ached a little, but the motion helped. Movement always helped. On her way home, she stopped by the store, not just to restock juice and seeds, but to try something new. She picked up fresh beets, spinach, and bananas. She remembered from nursing school, those were high in potassium and nitrates too. Maybe there were more allies in this fight than she knew. This isn't just about the 3 foods anymore, she thought. It's about building an army. Later, she texted her walking group. Can we move our walk to earlier? Heat's making my legs cranky. Margaret replied first. Sure thing. We miss your stories. Eleanor smiled. Not long ago, she was dodging those walks completely. Now she was rescheduling them to protect her body. That was growth. Not just physical. Mental. Emotional. That night, Eleanor sipped her tart cherry juice slowly, like wine. She lit a candle. Made her avocado toast with a fried egg on top. Sprinkled pumpkin seeds on everything, just to be extra safe. She felt like she was stepping into a partnership with her body. Not fighting it. Not fearing it. Listening to it. As she lay down to sleep, she whispered. I won't forget again. Her legs felt loose. Relaxed. Like they trusted her this time. And maybe, finally, she was starting to trust herself. Eleanor never thought of herself as the kind of person who would go viral. She didn't even like the word. Sounded like something you took antibiotics for. But on a sleepy Tuesday morning, fueled by a strong cup of black coffee and a spark of purpose, she sat down at her kitchen table and opened Facebook. The post was supposed to be short. I'm 73 years old and I used to wake up nearly every night with leg cramps so bad they made me cry. My doctor shrugged. My meds didn't help. Then I saw a video of Elon Musk saying 3 foods changed everything. I thought, why not? I've been eating avocado, drinking tart cherry juice, and snacking on pumpkin seeds for 2 weeks now. No pills. No gimmicks. Just food. And guess what? I've had 5 nights in a row with no cramps. 5. She paused, fingers hovering over the keyboard. I'm not saying this will work for everyone. But if you're struggling, it might help. And if it does, tell someone. We deserve to sleep through the night. She added a photo of her breakfast plate, avocado toast sprinkled with seeds, cherry juice in a wine glass, like a victory toast. She hit post. An hour later, the post had 12 likes. Then 34. Then over 100. By lunchtime, comments were flooding in. I've been dealing with this for years, trying it tonight. My mother is 82 and can barely walk after a cramp. Thank you. Never thought I'd take health advice from Elon Musk, but okay, I'm in. Then came the shares. Over 800 by nightfall. Eleanor blinked at the screen. She refreshed. And refreshed again. What had she started? The next day, her inbox exploded. Strangers were messaging her, some from as far as Australia and England. What kind of cherry juice exactly? Do I eat the seeds raw or roasted? What time of day is best? She tried to answer them all, but it was too much. Anna stepped in, gently. Mom. This isn't a hobby anymore. You need a system. They opened a free Substack together. Eleanor named it. No more midnight screams, one senior's fight against leg cramps. Within 48 hours, she had 2,000 subscribers. Her first newsletter outlined what she ate, when she ate it, and what results she noticed. She even made a printable, cramp defense, grocery list and sleep tracker. Comments poured in. Photos, too. Seniors in Ohio showing off their new Musk breakfast. A woman in Idaho who decorated her tart cherry juice bottle with glitter and called it her cramp crusher. A man in Florida who said he hadn't danced with his wife in years, until last Friday. Eleanor read them all, wiping her eyes more than once. She never imagined that pain, the very thing that had made her feel small, weak, and invisible, could somehow turn into power. But with visibility came questions. A podcast producer emailed her with the subject line. Interview request, the avocado lady everyone's talking about. A wellness blog called her the Queen of the Musk Method. And then, it happened. She got a direct message on X, formerly Twitter, from a verified account. @MacusStories. Saw your post, Eleanor. I had the same experience. These foods work. Glad you're sharing. May. Yes. That May Musk. Elon's mother. Eleanor nearly dropped her phone. Anna came over that night to help her set up a Zoom interview with a health YouTuber who wanted to talk about non-pharmaceutical solutions for aging bodies. Eleanor was nervous. I'm not a doctor, she said. You're not pretending to be, Anna replied. You're just telling your truth. That clicked. And when the interview started, Eleanor told her story, plain and steady, like she always did. She wasn't flashy. She didn't push products. She just explained what worked, why she thinks it worked, and how others might benefit. By the end of the week, her Substack hit 10,000 subscribers. A local news station called. They wanted to film a segment. Retired nurse turns Musk method into senior wellness movement. Eleanor wore her nicest blouse. Cleaned her living room. Made sure her breakfast plate was perfect. When the camera rolled, she looked straight into the lens and said, I'm not promising a cure. I'm just sharing what helped me. And if something as simple as breakfast can give someone their sleep, and their peace, back, then it's worth shouting about. That night, after the segment aired, her old nursing supervisor called her out of the blue. Ellie, I saw you on the news. You're doing good work. Eleanor's throat tightened. I never thought I'd be helping people this way. You've always been a healer, the woman said. Now you're just doing it on a bigger stage. By now, Eleanor was back to walking every day, cramps reduced to occasional whispers instead of brutal screams. She'd added spinach and bananas to her rotation, experimented with anti-inflammatory teas, and started tracking hydration more closely. Her life didn't just feel better. It felt bigger. But just as things were rising, so was the pressure. Some readers asked for medical citations. Others accused her of promoting pseudoscience. A skeptical blog titled an article, Avocados, Cherry Juice, and Elon Musk. Is Grandma's health advice getting out of hand? The internet was listening. But it wasn't all friendly. Still, Eleanor didn't flinch. She had a comeback ready, scribbled in her journal just days earlier. It's not about Musk. It's not about trend. It's about trying something simple before turning to something extreme. If that's controversial, then let it be. It started with a headline. Big, bold, and condescending. A retired nurse claims avocados cure leg cramps, experts say, hold on a second. Eleanor's phone buzzed with the link around 6:30 a.m., just as she was settling in with her tea and pumpkin seed granola. She clicked it. The article was snide and dismissive. The author, a self-labeled, skeptical science journalist, quoted a few doctors who claimed there was insufficient evidence that food alone could treat leg cramps, especially in seniors. One line stung the most. It's irresponsible to push anecdotal remedies without peer-reviewed proof, no matter how viral your avocado toast gets. Eleanor's chest tightened. She wasn't a doctor. She'd never claimed to be. She was a nurse, retired, yes, but grounded in years of practical care. She didn't traffic in hype. She didn't sell pills. She told her story because no one else had told one like it. But now, people were doubting her intentions. Anna noticed the look on her face over breakfast. "What's wrong?" Eleanor turned the phone toward her. Anna read the headline. Paused. Then rolled her eyes. "Let me guess. Some 30-year-old who thinks seniors can't use the internet, much less change the conversation." They sat in silence for a moment before Eleanor said quietly. "Do you think I'm giving people false hope?" Anna put down her fork. "No, Mom. I think you're giving people permission to try something new. That's a big difference. But what if someone reads this and thinks I'm just another kook pushing a miracle cure? Then they didn't listen. You've said it every time, this isn't a miracle. It's maintenance." Still, the article opened the floodgates. Her inbox filled with questions, some sincere, some aggressive. "Where are your medical sources? Is this just placebo? Why would anyone trust Elon Musk on nutrition? Are you selling anything? What's your real angle?" She answered the kind ones patiently. Ignored the trolls. But it wore her down. That night, Eleanor sat on her porch, wrapped in a light blanket, laptop open on her knees. She stared at the blinking cursor in her Substack draft. Then she started typing. "Let's talk about the critics. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a health guru with supplements to sell or a book deal in the works. I'm a 73-year-old retired nurse who had a problem. That problem was leg cramps that stole my sleep, my peace, and my energy. After months of frustration, I tried something new: tart cherry juice, avocados, and pumpkin seeds. That's it. Not magic. Just minerals. It helped me. It's helped others. I've never said it will help everyone. But if trying a handful of food-based solutions makes someone feel empowered, makes them feel like their body isn't broken, then I'll take the criticism. I'm not selling hope. I'm living it. And I'll keep sharing, because the people who write to me every day, they're not asking for citations. They're asking for relief. And sometimes, relief starts with breakfast." She hit publish. Within an hour, the post had over 12,000 views. By morning, it had crossed 100,000. A new wave of comments poured in, this time, louder and more emotional than ever. "This is the first time I've felt seen. Thank you for defending us. We're not crazy, we're just tired of being ignored. Keep going, Eleanor. We've got your back." That afternoon, she got a call from a man named Dr. Jonah Behrens, a professor of nutritional biochemistry from Oregon. He spoke slowly, deliberately, like someone who weighed every word. "Eleanor, I read your piece. You're right about one thing: most people dismiss what doesn't fit into a pill bottle. But you've tapped into something we in the research world have been seeing for years, just no one wants to fund. And what's that? That food is an alternative medicine. It's foundational medicine. And for aging bodies, especially, it can do what meds can't." She leaned forward. "Then why aren't more doctors talking about this?" "Because there's no billing code for pumpkin seeds," he said flatly. He asked if she'd be willing to speak at a wellness and aging symposium next month. A keynote speaker had dropped out last minute. He thought Eleanor's story could reframe the entire conversation. She hesitated. "Me? I'm not. You're the perfect voice. You're not selling a program. You're showing people how to listen to their own bodies. That's rare. And that's real leadership." That night, Eleanor called Anna and told her about the invitation. There was silence on the line. Then. You're going to do it, right? I'm thinking about it. Mom. Think harder. This is bigger than Cramps now. Eleanor hung up the phone, walked to the mirror, and looked at herself, really looked. There were new lines on her face. Soft hollows under her cheekbones. But her eyes were bright. Clear. Steady. She was tired, yes. But also stronger than she'd been in years. Maybe she wasn't just healing. Maybe she was leading something. The hotel ballroom was bigger than Eleanor expected. Chandeliers glittered overhead. A long black curtain rippled behind a white podium marked National Wellness and Aging Summit. Rows of chairs stretched far beyond what her tired eyes could count. Somewhere out there. Behind those seats and cameras, were thousands of people, waiting to hear from her. She exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the moment press down on her chest. You don't have to be perfect, Anna whispered beside her. You just have to be you. Eleanor nodded. Her fingers were trembling. She gripped the edges of her notes like a lifeline. The event coordinator gave a subtle signal from stage right. You're on in 2 minutes, Ms. Warner. Ms. Warner. Not Eleanor. Not Mom. Not the avocado lady or grandma who beat the cramps. For the first time in decades, she wasn't just a caregiver or a patient. She was the speaker. As she stepped on stage, a gentle applause rose from the crowd. The lights blinded her for a moment. She couldn't make out faces. Just shapes. Movement. The low hum of anticipation. The mic was warm when she touched it. She glanced at her note cards. Then, tucked them away. My name is Eleanor Warner. I'm 73 years old. And I came here today to talk about something simple that changed my life. A pause. It wasn't a drug. It wasn't a surgery. It wasn't even new. It was food. A ripple of laughter. Curious smiles. For years, I woke up every night with pain in my legs so bad, I cried. The kind of pain that makes you dread going to sleep. The kind of pain that makes you think your best years are over. Her voice softened. And then, out of sheer desperation, I tried something I saw on the internet. A video of Elon Musk, of all people, talking about 3 foods that helped him: tart cherry juice, avocados, and pumpkin seeds. It sounded silly. But I figured, what did I have to lose? Eleanor told them the story, the cramp that made her scream in the middle of the night, the first night she slept all the way through, the post that went viral, and the people who wrote to her with their own stories. She didn't embellish. She didn't sell hope like a miracle. She shared it, like a blanket in winter. What I learned is this: healing doesn't always come in a bottle. Sometimes, it comes in what you put on your plate. Sometimes, it comes when you finally say, enough is enough. I'm going to listen to my body instead of apologizing for it. The room was silent. No coughs. No shifting. Just stillness, attention. Eleanor took a breath and stepped closer to the podium. I'm not here to give you a magic recipe. I'm here to remind you that your body wants to heal. It wants to feel good again. And sometimes, the path to that starts with the tiniest act of courage, like trying something new, even if people laugh. She smiled. I used to be afraid of being called that lady from Facebook. Now. I'm proud of it. The room erupted in applause. Eleanor blinked, surprised. It wasn't polite clapping, it was real. Hands raised. People on their feet. She stepped back from the mic, heart thudding, and let the wave of sound wash over her. Afterward, people lined up to speak with her. A woman in her 80s gripped Eleanor's hand with tears in her eyes. You made me feel like I wasn't invisible anymore. A retired teacher handed her a dog-eared notebook. I've tracked my cramps for 5 years. Your method worked in 3 days. A younger woman, probably in her 40s, whispered. My dad's struggling. I'm going to try this. For him. Back in her hotel room that evening, Eleanor kicked off her shoes and collapsed into the armchair. She opened her phone. Notifications flooded in. Envelope with arrow, just saw your talk, life-changing. Envelope with arrow, can we translate your story into Spanish? Envelope with arrow, our senior center wants to partner with you. Anna walked in with 2 cups of tea. You were amazing. I didn't faint, Eleanor said, smiling. I'll take that as a win. They clinked mugs. But later, when the lights were off and the room quiet, Eleanor sat up in bed and stared at the ceiling. This was more than a talk. More than a post. This was a movement now. And movements need direction. She wasn't just reacting anymore. She was leading. The next morning, Eleanor drafted a new entry for her Substack. What I wish I'd known at 60. It read. I thought aging meant shrinking. Shrinking dreams. Shrinking mobility. Shrinking choices. But now I know, it's not about shrinking. It's about simplifying. I don't want to be 25 again. I just want to wake up and move without pain. I want to be present at breakfast. At playtime with the grandkids. At dinner with my daughter. And if 3 foods can help with that, then maybe aging isn't the end of something. Maybe it's the start of doing things on our own terms. By the time she clicked publish, it was clear, Eleanor's voice wasn't just being heard. It was being trusted. The email subject line read. Exciting collaboration opportunity, let's talk branding. Eleanor opened it cautiously. It was from a polished marketing rep at a well-known supplement company. One of the big ones. Their name alone carried weight in drugstores, commercials, and late-night infomercials. The message was enthusiastic, flattering, even a little aggressive. We've been following your journey and love your authentic voice. We believe there's a powerful opportunity here, Eleanor's Essentials, the Musk Method Kit. They proposed a branded line of supplements, tart cherry capsules, avocado oil soft gels, and pumpkin seed powder, all bundled into a sleek, senior-friendly monthly kit. They'd even throw in a branded water bottle and a welcome video featuring Eleanor herself. No more messy avocados or hunting for the right juice brand. This kit delivers exactly what your audience needs, with your seal of approval. Attached was a contract. With a signing bonus that made Eleanor's jaw tighten, $275,000 upfront, plus royalties. She stared at the number. Then closed her laptop. That evening, Anna came over and found Eleanor pacing the living room. You look like you're about to rob a bank. Worse, Eleanor muttered. I think I just got offered one. She handed her the email. Anna read it slowly. Her eyes widened at the payout. Whoa. This is legit. Too legit, Eleanor said, folding her arms. It feels like selling out. Is it? Or is it just helping more people efficiently? Eleanor didn't answer right away. She walked over to the kitchen and poured herself a glass of water. What if this turns into one of those things? You know, the influencer scams. People think I'm just cashing in. Would they be wrong? The question hung in the air, heavier than it should have been. That night, Eleanor couldn't sleep. Not because of leg cramps, but because of the noise in her head. She thought about the readers who trusted her. The ones who called her a lifeline. A truth teller. What would they think if she went from real food to real products? Could she guarantee the pills worked the same as the actual foods? Would she be part of the problem she swore she was pushing back against? The truth stung. The next morning, she called someone she hadn't spoken to in a long time, Miriam, an old friend from her nursing days. Miriam now worked as a clinical consultant in elder nutrition policy. "Tell me straight," Eleanor said after a quick catch-up. "Would you do it?" Miriam was quiet. "I've seen good people get burned. Not just by the public, but by themselves. It starts with, 'just this once,' and ends with, 'I can't remember why I started.'" Eleanor nodded, even though Miriam couldn't see her. "What's the upside?" Miriam asked. "Money. Reach. Convenience. And the downside? Losing their trust." "Then you already have your answer." But still, that number echoed in her mind. $275,000. She thought about what it could mean. Fixing the roof. Helping Anna with the kids. Finally booking that Alaska cruise she and James had once dreamed about before his passing. She opened the contract one last time. And then, before she could second-guess herself, she deleted it. She opened her laptop and began typing another Substack entry. "Why I said no. A company offered me a big deal this week. A supplement line based on the foods I've talked about. Cherry pills, avocado oil, pumpkin seed powder, all wrapped in nice packaging with my name on it. It would have made things easier. And richer. But here's the thing, it didn't feel right. I don't want to be a face on a bottle. I want to be a voice reminding you that health doesn't have to be sold in plastic. Real food isn't always convenient. But it's powerful. And I'm not here for shortcuts. I'm here for results." So I said no. Not because I don't value your trust. But because I do. We're building something real here. Let's keep it that way. She clicked publish. Within hours, the comments poured in. "Respect. You just became my hero. That's integrity money can't buy." Even a few doctors chimed in. Finally, a wellness voice that isn't for sale. The next day, Eleanor walked to the park. No phone. No headphones. Just her thoughts, birdsong, and the gentle ache of effort in her knees. She sat on her favorite bench, closed her eyes, and smiled. For the first time in a long time, she felt free. Not just from cramps. Not just from fear. But from the pressure to be more than what she already was. Enough. Eleanor sat in the drafty conference room of the Eastwood Senior Community Center, sipping lukewarm coffee and watching the clock tick past 9:05. The folding chairs were only half filled, mostly with a handful of curious seniors, a couple of staff members, and one suspiciously overenthusiastic wellness blogger who kept adjusting a tiny tripod. Still, it was a start. She glanced at her handwritten agenda, drawn up with Anna's help. Food First Wellness, a pilot program for seniors. The idea had come quickly after turning down the supplement deal. If companies could build entire businesses around convenient health, why couldn't she help people build something sustainable, real habits, real food, real understanding? No branding. No bottling. Just education. Eleanor stood and cleared her throat. "Good morning, everyone. My name's Eleanor Warner. Some of you know me from the cherry juice thing. Or the avocado toast thing. Or the leg cramp thing." A few polite chuckles. "Today, I want to talk about something deeper, how to use food as a foundation for better sleep, fewer aches, and more energy, without spending a fortune or buying anything you don't understand." She flipped to a slide Anna had helped her create, simple but effective. The Cramp-Free 3. Tart cherry juice, anti-inflammatory plus melatonin boost. Avocados, potassium plus magnesium. Pumpkin seeds, zinc plus magnesium. Then she added a fourth bullet with a smile. Hydration, plain OL, water. Hands went up. Questions poured in. How much cherry juice is too much? Can I use canned pumpkin seeds? Do I need to do this forever, or just until the cramps go away? Eleanor answered each one calmly, turning answers into conversations. That's what this was about, not a diet, not a fix, but a dialogue. Seniors sharing knowledge. Building community. Learning how to care for their bodies without giving up their autonomy or dignity. After the session, a quiet woman named Ruth approached her. "I've had restless legs for 2 decades, she said, voice trembling. "Doctors just say, get more sleep. I can't sleep. I'm going to try everything you said." Eleanor nodded. "Start with the juice. Half a cup at night. Let me know what changes." Ruth held her hand for a second longer than expected. "You're the first person who talked to us. Not at us." But not everyone was sold. 2 days later, she got an email from the center's assistant director, Leo. Polite but firm. "Hi Eleanor. We appreciate your passion, but a few board members are concerned that the program promotes unverified health advice. Some have suggested postponing future sessions until we have clearance from a certified dietitian." Eleanor stared at the message, her heart sinking. She wasn't claiming to be a doctor. She'd been careful with her words. Careful with every post, every flyer, every answer. Still, this was the pushback she'd expected, and feared. She called Anna. "They think I'm dangerous," Eleanor said bitterly. "Because I told people to eat avocados." "No," Anna replied, calm. "They think you're influential. That scares people who like things to stay the same." Instead of canceling, Eleanor made a decision. She reached out to Dr. Jonah Behrens, the biochemist who'd invited her to speak at the Wellness Summit. "Jonah, I need a partner. Someone with credentials who can stand beside me, not because I need a crutch, but because they need reassurance." He agreed without hesitation. "Send me your notes. I'll vouch for every mineral in those foods." Together, they restructured the program. Session 1, Understanding Electrolytes and Cramps. Session 2, Anti-inflammatory foods for aging bodies. Session 3, The Sleep-Nutrition Connection. Session 4, Grocery Store Field Trip. Session 5, Potluck Challenge, Bring Your Best Healing Meal. They called it Eat to Ease, a practical wellness series for seniors. The community center approved it. Cautiously. At the next session, the chairs were full. Some attendees brought notebooks. Others brought Tupperware with their new favorite snacks, roasted pumpkin seeds with cinnamon, mashed avocado on sourdough, cherry smoothies blended with Greek yogurt. One woman stood up mid-session and announced, "I haven't had a cramp in 8 nights. 8. I don't even like avocados, but I'd marry one now." Laughter rippled through the room. Eleanor felt her cheeks flush, but not with embarrassment. It was pride. After the session, Leo approached her. He looked sheepish. "I'll admit, I was skeptical. But this? This is working. People want to feel like their bodies aren't broken," Eleanor said. "And that they don't need a prescription for every ache." He nodded slowly. "We might want to make this permanent." Later that week, she posted a new Substack entry. The program begins. "The world tells us aging means loss, less energy, less flexibility, less freedom. But what if we flipped that story? What if we used food not to shrink or restrict, but to restore?" I'm not trying to create a movement. I'm just trying to remind people. Your body remembers how to feel good. You just have to give it what it needs. And sometimes, that starts with the simplest things. She ended the post with a question. What's the one food that makes you feel better than any pill ever has? Hundreds of replies flooded in. Stories. Photos. Memories. Eleanor read each one with a full heart. Her journey had started in silence, sleepless, painful nights, alone in the dark. Now, her life was brimming with voices. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Eleanor had always prided herself on independence, on being the one who fixed things, who carried burdens, who never asked for help. But as the weeks passed, something was starting to shift. Her mornings, once full of eager anticipation for the next wellness session, now felt like a heavy weight hanging around her neck. The glow from the Eat to Ease program had begun to dim under the relentless pressure of meetings, updates, emails, and, the hardest part of it all, her own body. The program was growing. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive. More seniors from neighboring towns had started signing up, eager to learn from Eleanor's advice. Community centers were asking her to host workshops. Even local news outlets had picked up the story. But with success came exhaustion. It started with small things, a missed email here, a skipped morning run there. Then, her knees began to ache. And not just any ache, it was a deep, gnawing discomfort, the kind she hadn't felt in years. She chalked it up to age. To stress. To the long hours spent planning every session and fielding every question. But it kept getting worse. One morning, after hosting a particularly busy session in a neighboring town, Eleanor found herself curled up on her couch, her legs stretched out, a heating pad on her knees. Anna walked in, taking one look at her and raising an eyebrow. "You look like you're about to crash." "I'm fine," Eleanor replied, not meeting her gaze. "Just tired." Tired doesn't explain that look. Anna placed a mug of herbal tea on the table beside her. "What's going on, Elle?" Eleanor hesitated. Then, for the first time in a while, she let her guard down. She exhaled. "I think I've been running on fumes for too long." Anna sat down beside her, placing a hand gently on Eleanor's shoulder. "You've built something amazing, but this isn't sustainable. Not like this." Eleanor clenched her fists, feeling the familiar pang of frustration. "I don't have a choice. People are counting on me." Anna's voice softened. "That's just it, Elle. You don't have to do this alone." Eleanor spent the next few days in deep reflection. Her physical pain had gotten worse, not just in her knees but in her back, her shoulders, and even her headaches were back, those familiar tension headaches that had plagued her in the past. She'd pushed herself beyond her limits. And now, her body was speaking up. The thought was humbling. Scary, even. By the time the weekend rolled around, Eleanor was forced to acknowledge something she'd been avoiding: she needed help. On Sunday afternoon, she called Dr. Jonah Behrens. He answered after the second ring. "Jonah, I'm burnt out." There was a long pause. "I can tell. You're running the program without much support, right?" "I'm doing everything. Planning. Writing. Teaching. Promoting. It's all on me, and I'm cracking under the weight." Jonah's voice was steady and reassuring. "You've built something incredible, Eleanor. But even a house needs a foundation. You need to delegate. You can't do it all. But I promised people. You promised people results. Not a one-woman show." That night, Eleanor sent an email to her community, her students, her followers. She kept it simple. "Hey friends. I've been listening to my body, and I've realized something important: I can't give you my best if I'm not at my best. So I'm taking a short break to recharge. We'll keep the program going with the amazing team at Eastwood Senior Center. And when I come back, we'll do this even better. Thank you for understanding." She hit send and sat back in her chair, her fingers trembling slightly. The following week, Eleanor took a full day off: no emails, no meetings, no social media updates. Just her, a good book, and a walk in the park. The world didn't fall apart. Over the next few days, she asked Anna to help her manage the logistics of the program, finding a way to bring in guest speakers for the upcoming sessions. She also reached out to a local nutritionist to co-host a few of the more technical classes on food absorption and digestion, so she wouldn't have to bear the entire weight of the content herself. For the first time in months, Eleanor didn't feel like she was running at 100 miles per hour. She was able to catch her breath, take care of herself, and not feel guilty about it. As the days passed, Eleanor began to realign. She reminded herself of the reason she started all of this, to help people, not just to grow a brand or build an empire, but to make real, lasting change in people's lives. That meant having balance. It meant being honest about what she could and couldn't do. One evening, she sat down to write another Substack post, this time about her experience. Asking for help. You know, I used to think strength meant never asking for help. That I had to prove something, show that I could handle it all. But here's the truth. If you're burning out, you're not helping anyone. Especially not yourself. So, I've decided to ask for help. Not because I can't do it alone, but because I don't want to. The mission is bigger than me. And the only way I can keep showing up for all of you is by remembering that self-care is not selfish. It's necessary. I'm not going anywhere. But I'm learning to pause, so I can keep moving forward. She clicked publish and felt a wave of relief wash over her. Not just from the post, but from letting go. The next week, Anna sent her a screenshot. It was a comment on one of Eleanor's posts. Thank you for being real. It's good to know we're all in this together. For the first time in a while, Eleanor smiled. Eleanor stood at the window of her apartment, looking out at the city below. Her phone buzzed again, but this time, it wasn't just another email from a seniors wellness group. No, this was different. Subject, new partnership opportunity, wellness brand collaboration. It was from an up-and-coming wellness brand that had recently launched a line of eco-friendly supplements, and their marketing director, Sarah, wanted to meet. According to Sarah's email, they were looking to partner with someone who understood the real, practical approach to health, someone who had a real-world following, someone like Eleanor. Eleanor read the email twice. She wasn't naive. She knew what this meant, bigger reach. Bigger partnerships meant more people could benefit from her message, her mission. But at what cost? Her previous rejection of the Easy Fix supplement deals had been clear. She didn't want to promote quick fix solutions that overlooked the deeper, more sustainable approach. But this was different. This brand, from what she'd researched, wasn't pushing gimmicks. They focused on holistic health, sustainability, and real food, values that aligned, at least somewhat, with her own. Still, there was a nagging doubt in the back of her mind. The meeting with Sarah was set for the following week at a chic cafe on the edge of town. Eleanor dressed simply, no need for flash, no need to impress. Just a conversation, right? When Sarah greeted her, her smile was warm but polished, and her handshake firm. Eleanor, it's so nice to meet you. I've been following your program for months now. We're really impressed by what you're doing, and we think you'd be the perfect fit for our next campaign. Sarah pulled out a sleek tablet, swiping through slides that highlighted the company's rapid growth and social media engagement. It all sounded so familiar, the promises of more visibility, more financial backing, more growth. We've noticed that your message resonates deeply with your community, Sarah continued. Your program Eat to Ease really speaks to people, and we think we could help you amplify that. We're willing to offer you a partnership where we promote your content, and you integrate our products into your wellness advice. Eleanor's mind spun. She nodded, listening intently, her fingers tapping lightly on the ceramic cup in front of her. As Sarah spoke about the logistics and how their partnership would work, Eleanor's thoughts drifted. The money was tempting. The resources they could provide, marketing, access to a larger audience, and even professional chefs who could help with content creation, sounded like a dream. But as Sarah detailed how they envisioned using Eleanor's platform to drive sales, Eleanor felt a shift in the air. The excitement she had felt earlier faded, replaced by something more uncomfortable. We think you could really help us drive this next campaign, especially with your credibility and the authentic, real food approach you already advocate. You'd simply be the face of our newest line of natural sleep aids and muscle recovery supplements. Sleep aids. Muscle recovery supplements. The words hung in the air, filling the space between them like a weight. Eleanor took a deep breath. Sarah, she began, choosing her words carefully, I understand what you're offering. But my program isn't about quick fixes. It's about sustainable, long-term habits. I'm not looking to be a spokesperson for a product. I want people to focus on real food, the kind you can find at a farmer's market, not in a pill bottle. Sarah's smile faltered just slightly, but she recovered quickly. I completely understand your concerns, Eleanor. And I think that's why we'd be such a great match. We don't want to be seen as a quick fix. Our products are made with whole food ingredients, sourced responsibly. It's about sustainability. But Eleanor knew all too well how quickly marketing could turn even the most well-intentioned product into another quick fix promise. It was so easy for companies to slip into that world. The world where labels became more important than lifestyles. Where consumer habits were manipulated for profit, not empowerment. The conversation continued, but in Eleanor's mind, the gears were already turning. She wasn't entirely sure if she could trust this company, even if their mission aligned with hers. She had to make a decision, and fast. As the meeting ended, Sarah gave her a card and a warm handshake. We'll be in touch. Take your time to think it over. We'd love to work with you, Eleanor. Later that evening, Eleanor texted Anna. I met with the wellness brand today. They want me to be the face of their next campaign, but I'm not sure I can do it without compromising what we stand for. Anna's response came quickly. You have to ask yourself, Elle, is this the path that will help people? Or just grow your platform? Over the next few days, Eleanor weighed the decision. She spoke to a few trusted friends, including Dr. Jonah, who'd been watching from the sidelines. Eleanor, you've built something incredible. But this partnership could give you the resources to reach more people. You could continue doing what you do, but on a larger scale. It was tempting, but Eleanor wasn't convinced. The more she thought about it, the more she realized that scale meant more than just numbers. It meant sacrificing parts of what had made her program so special, the authenticity, the raw, unpolished nature of it. She thought back to the seniors who had thanked her for being real. For not offering them a magic pill but showing them how to improve their lives with simple, actionable steps. It was a week later when Eleanor made her decision. She called Sarah. Thank you for the offer, Eleanor said, her voice steady. But I've decided that my message is bigger than a partnership. I want to keep my platform true to the core of what it stands for. It's about food, community, and long-term health, not products. There was a pause on the other end of the line before Sarah spoke. I understand, Eleanor. I really do. And I respect your decision. I'll be following your program closely. You're doing something important. Eleanor hung up the phone, her chest tight but her heart relieved. She didn't need a product to spread her message. What she had was already powerful, a community that trusted her. A mission that was grounded in authenticity. Eleanor had always thought she'd be fine with the attention. After all, her program had grown rapidly, and people were constantly praising her methods and her authenticity. But when the offer came to appear on a major national talk show, something inside her hesitated. It wasn't that she didn't want to help more people. It was the way she was being positioned. The focus of the show wasn't her program, her beliefs, or the deeper purpose she'd built the wellness movement on. No, the show wanted to highlight her as a success story, a shining example of how to live the dream. It sounded wrong. But the opportunity was undeniable. The producers offered to bring her on live, in front of an audience of millions. She'd get to promote her program. She'd get to speak her truth. But for some reason, every time she thought about the cameras, the flashing lights, the expectations, she felt a twinge of doubt. The call came in on a Tuesday afternoon. Eleanor sat at her desk, reviewing the final details of the next wellness session. When she saw the number, her heart skipped a beat. "Hello, Eleanor. This is Sam from the morning talk show. We're thrilled about your program, and we'd love to have you on the show next week. How does next Friday sound?" Eleanor hesitated, her mind racing. This could be huge. She could finally reach the audience she'd always dreamed of. But, "Sam, I'm flattered. But I just want to be clear on the message you're looking for. I don't want to turn my program into some kind of quick fix pitch." Sam's response was quick and confident. "No worries at all. We just want to hear your story, your journey, your mission. We're all about real people doing real things to help others. It's about authenticity. Trust me, we're not looking for anything shallow." Eleanor paused, her fingers trembling slightly. It felt like a compromise, but the opportunity to share her message was too great to pass up. The next few days were a blur of preparation. Eleanor worked with her team to refine her talking points, making sure they aligned with her program's core principles. She would not be swayed. She would use the platform to speak about real, sustainable health. No flashy promises. No quick fixes. But the closer it got to the day of the show, the more her anxiety mounted. She was accustomed to small rooms, intimate settings, and one-on-one connections with her audience. But now, she was about to stand in front of millions, the pressure of expectation hanging like a thick cloud. Her phone buzzed one more time. It was a message from Anna. "Are you ready for this? Remember who you are, Elle. They want you for your authenticity, not some perfect image. Don't lose yourself in the spotlight." When the day arrived, Eleanor found herself in the green room, surrounded by stylists, producers, and makeup artists. It was all very surreal. This wasn't the world she was used to. The flashing lights, the perfectly manicured sets, the eager producers waiting for her to step out, everything screamed show business. Everything except for the message she had worked so hard to build. The host, Jesse Wiley, was charismatic, his broad smile and upbeat energy immediately putting Eleanor on edge. She had seen his show before. He had a knack for making people comfortable, but also for steering conversations toward the sensational. "Eleanor, it's such a pleasure to have you here," Jesse said as he gestured for her to sit on the plush chair across from him. "Your program is making waves, and people can't stop talking about it. Tell us, how did you go from a small local initiative to this big wellness movement?" Eleanor took a deep breath, steadying herself. This was her moment. But she wasn't going to just tell her story. She was going to make them feel it. "It started with just a few people in my community. I never planned on this becoming something big. I just wanted to help people who felt forgotten, who didn't have the resources or the knowledge to live a healthier life. I believe in food. In real food, not pills, not supplements, just the things we can grow, cook, and share with each other." The interview flowed smoothly at first. Eleanor spoke about the importance of nutrition and community, of teaching seniors how to make simple meals that didn't just support their health but also their sense of agency. She shared her passion for creating real change through small, actionable steps. But as the conversation continued, Jesse's questions started to shift. "So, Eleanor, what's your secret? How do you stay so energetic and optimistic all the time? I mean, with everything going on, you must have some kind of magic formula. A secret supplement, maybe?" There it was. The question she had dreaded. The one that hinted at the possibility of promoting a quick fix over lasting change. Eleanor felt her pulse quicken. The cameras were rolling. The studio audience was waiting. Her answer could make or break her. Eleanor paused. The spotlight felt heavy on her. She could feel the weight of expectation pressing down on her, her brand, her community, and her own values. It would be so easy to say something simple, to give them a catchy line. To play into the drama of it all. But she couldn't. She thought back to the seniors who had come to her, looking for something they could hold on to. Hope. Sustainability. And with a calmness that surprised even her, she looked directly into the camera. There's no magic pill, Jessie. No secret supplement. It's all about balance. About food, community, and consistency. That's what I teach, and that's what works. I believe the best medicine is the food we already have on our tables. The audience went silent for a moment, and then, to her surprise, there was a round of applause. The interview continued, but Eleanor felt lighter, more sure of herself. She had said what she needed to say, no gimmicks, no compromises. And when she left the stage, she realized that the spotlight didn't have to change who she was. It didn't have to define her. Later that evening, Eleanor received a text from Anna. You nailed it, Elle. That was real. That was you. You've set the bar. As Eleanor lay in bed that night, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. The spotlight hadn't changed her. In fact, it had illuminated her message for the world to see. And in the next chapter, Eleanor will begin to see the impact of her authenticity in ways she hadn't anticipated. It was the kind of morning Eleanor had dreamed about. She sat at her kitchen table, sipping her coffee as the sun's first rays peeked through the blinds. But instead of the usual quiet, there was a quiet buzz in the air. Her phone had been blowing up since the early hours of the morning. It had been days since the interview aired, and as expected, the response had been overwhelming. Social media was alive with activity. Her inbox was flooded with messages of encouragement and gratitude from people who had watched her on the show. She couldn't remember the last time her platform had seen this kind of attention. A text from Anna popped up on her phone. I just saw the interview. You were amazing. The messages are pouring in, and people are really connecting with your honesty. Eleanor smiled, but there was a sense of unease in her chest. This kind of exposure wasn't something she had ever sought. Yes, it felt good to be recognized for staying true to her mission, but with the waves of attention came a new set of challenges, one she hadn't anticipated. That afternoon, as Eleanor scrolled through her social media feed, she found herself reading posts from strangers who had been inspired by her words. There were photos of elderly couples cooking together, vibrant plates of fruits and vegetables, and messages from people who felt a renewed sense of hope about their health. I've been stuck in a cycle of relying on supplements, thinking they were the answer. After hearing Eleanor's interview, I realized I've been neglecting the simple foods that can truly heal my body. This is a wake-up call. Thank you, Eleanor. The message was just one of many flooding in. But it wasn't all positive feedback. There was, inevitably, a backlash. As much as Eleanor had inspired many, she also found herself caught in the middle of heated discussions. A few industry professionals, including some big-name dietitians and health influencers, took issue with her stance on supplements. Eleanor's idea of food-based health is great in theory, but let's be real. What about the people who need extra support? Not everyone has the luxury of making meals from scratch every day. Health isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. Her message is misguided and oversimplified. These criticisms stung. She had expected some pushback, but the sheer intensity of it took her by surprise. Some messages even questioned her credentials, which was ironic, given how much time she had spent studying nutrition and working with real people in her community. That evening, Eleanor sat down with Dr. Jonah, who had always been her rock through the ups and downs of her journey. You can't please everyone, Jonah said, his voice calm as they sat across from each other at her kitchen table. What matters is that you stay grounded in what you know is true. This is the price of growth. The bigger you get, the more scrutiny you'll face. But those who really believe in your message, they're the ones who matter. Eleanor took a deep breath. He was right. She had built this program from the ground up, not by following trends or catering to every passing fad, but by staying true to what she believed in. She had always put people first, not profits. She wasn't going to change that now, just because a few critics didn't like her message. But the pressure weighed on her. As she navigated this new phase of her life, she realized that there was a fine line between staying true to herself and maintaining the integrity of her mission, while still growing and evolving. Later that week, Eleanor received an invitation that would forever change her trajectory. A well-known publishing company had reached out to her with an offer to write a book about her approach to health. It was everything she had ever dreamed of, a chance to share her message with the world in a way that felt permanent, lasting. But it wasn't just the book deal that made her pause, it was the conditions. They wanted her to include a section on supplements for seniors, which, despite her personal reservations, was an area they felt would boost the book's commercial appeal. Eleanor stared at the email, her heart in her throat. It was everything she had worked for, but it felt like a compromise. It was a direct contradiction to everything she had just told the world in her interview. She called Anna, her voice thick with uncertainty. "Anna, they want me to include supplements in the book. I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm going to be betraying everything I've built." Anna's voice was steady, offering the calm Eleanor needed. "This is your decision, Elle. You have to ask yourself, will writing this book help more people? Or will it make you feel like a sellout? The choice has to be yours." Eleanor hung up the phone and sat in silence. The weight of her decision felt heavier than ever. The following days were spent agonizing over the decision. She consulted with Dr. Jonah, who reminded her that no matter how big the platform got, she couldn't lose sight of why she started. "Eleanor, this book isn't just about what you put in it. It's about the message you're sending. You've always believed that food is medicine, and your readers will believe that too. Stay true to your message, and the right readers will find you. Don't let the commercial side of things make you forget why you're doing this." With that in mind, Eleanor replied to the publisher, thanking them for their offer but turning down the inclusion of supplements. She wrote a counter-proposal that stayed true to her principles, offering practical solutions for health without leaning on pills or powders. It was a gamble, but it felt like the right gamble. Days later, Eleanor received a reply that made her heart race. The publisher agreed to her terms. They would move forward with the project, focusing on the importance of food, community, and sustainable health. As the book began to take shape, Eleanor realized something important. Her decision had been more than just a career move, it had been a personal evolution. She was no longer the young woman trying to make a difference. She was a leader in a movement, one that was about more than just wellness, it was about authenticity, integrity, and trust. But as she looked out at the bustling city below her apartment window, Eleanor knew that with every decision she made, the ripples of change would continue to spread. And with those ripples came the responsibility to stay true to her message, no matter how far she went. Eleanor sat at her desk, staring at the piles of letters, emails, and marketing materials that had accumulated in front of her. It had been weeks since her book was officially released, and while the sales numbers were impressive, the emotional toll was starting to take its toll. Her inbox was constantly full, messages from fans, critics, collaborators, and business partners. She could barely keep up. People who had once sent simple messages of support now saw her as a brand, not a person. And as much as she tried to keep the human side of her program intact, it was becoming increasingly difficult to juggle it all. Her phone rang, and she immediately knew it was another request. Another interview. Another podcast. Another partnership proposal. She hesitated before picking up. "Hey, Eleanor. It's Sam from the marketing team at Wellness Now. We've got another speaking engagement opportunity for you. It's in New York next month, thousands of attendees. It's going to be huge." Her heart sank. The thought of flying across the country, doing back-to-back events, and speaking in front of yet another packed auditorium made her feel claustrophobic. When the interview requests first started flooding in, Eleanor had been thrilled. She had always dreamed of being able to spread her message to a wider audience. But now, months later, she was beginning to feel overwhelmed. The attention, while gratifying, had also brought with it an unrelenting demand for more appearances, more content, more visibility. Eleanor was no longer just a health coach or wellness advocate. She was a public figure, and with that came a new set of pressures. The expectations were never-ending. Every social media post, every article, every conversation seemed to have weight. Her every word was dissected, analyzed, and critiqued. What had started as a genuine desire to help people now felt like a performance, a game that she was beginning to lose control of. That night, Eleanor found herself lying awake in bed, unable to sleep. She had gotten into the habit of checking her social media before bed, but now, it only seemed to increase her anxiety. There were the positive messages, the ones that made her smile and reaffirmed why she had started this journey. But then there were the negative ones, the anonymous trolls who criticized her every move, who told her she wasn't doing enough, wasn't helping enough, wasn't doing it right. She had long ago stopped responding to criticism. But even so, the weight of it lingered in her thoughts. How much of herself should she give to others? How much should she hold back to preserve the woman she used to be, the one who had started this mission without the cameras, the lights, or the spotlight? Eleanor rolled over and picked up her phone once more. There was a new message. It was from Anna, and it was a simple one. "You okay?" Eleanor stared at the screen. She could feel the tightness in her chest, the unease in her stomach. But she didn't respond right away. How could she explain to Anna that she was slowly losing herself? That the woman who used to teach others how to thrive now felt like she was drowning in the demands of her own success? Finally, after several minutes, she typed back. "I'm not sure anymore." The next morning, Eleanor decided she needed to step back. She called her team, telling them that she needed a week off. No media appearances, no new partnerships, no events. She was taking time for herself. It was a risky decision, especially with her book's popularity still at a peak, but Eleanor knew she had reached her breaking point. She couldn't continue giving from an empty cup. The first day of her break, Eleanor went to the park near her apartment. She hadn't had time for a walk in weeks. The simple act of walking, of breathing fresh air without the constant buzz of notifications, was like a small act of rebellion against everything she had become. She walked slowly, savoring the quiet of the park. It was hard to believe that just months ago, this was her regular routine, no interviews, no demands, just time spent reflecting and recharging. As she sat on a bench, watching a group of children play, a thought struck her. Was this the life she had dreamed of? The answer, of course, was yes. She was living her dream. But somehow, the dream had evolved into something she hadn't anticipated. Something that was starting to feel like a trap. It wasn't the attention itself that bothered her, it was the loss of control. She had given so much of herself to this mission, but now, it seemed as if everyone else was deciding what her mission should look like. They wanted her to be more. They wanted her to be a product. That evening, Eleanor called Jonah. "I'm struggling, Jonah," she admitted, her voice thick. "I've worked so hard for this, but now it's like everything I do is being turned into something, it's not me anymore." Jonah's voice was reassuring, calm as always. "I hear you, success is a double-edged sword. It gives you the platform, but it also puts you in the crosshairs. The key is knowing where to draw the line. This is your journey, not theirs. If you lose sight of that, it's going to be hard to keep going." Eleanor took a deep breath. She knew he was right. She had created this. But she had to remember that she was more than the sum of its parts. Over the next few days, Eleanor went to the beach, spent time cooking with friends, and reconnected with what had first ignited her passion for wellness, the people. She found herself attending community dinners again, sitting around tables with seniors, listening to their stories, and seeing the real impact of what she had built. It was a reminder that she wasn't just a figurehead or a brand, she was someone who truly cared about others. She didn't need to be everything for everyone. She only needed to be true to herself. By the end of her week off, Eleanor felt like a new woman. She wasn't going to let the weight of success crush her, instead, she would carry it with intention. She made a promise to herself that she would never again sacrifice her own peace for the sake of maintaining an image or meeting the world's expectations. She wasn't just a leader in the wellness space, she was a woman with boundaries, and she wasn't afraid to set them. With this newfound clarity, Eleanor knew that the next chapter of her journey would be different. She would continue to share her message, but she would do so on her terms. Eleanor sat in her favorite spot at the local cafe, a steaming cup of herbal tea in front of her, her laptop open but untouched. The familiar hum of conversation around her was a comforting sound, but it didn't drown out the thoughts swirling in her mind. It had been weeks since she'd taken that much-needed break. The time away had given her the clarity she needed to step back into her mission with a renewed sense of purpose, but it had also made her realize something profound. She could no longer afford to approach her life with the same hustle mentality she once had. For years, she had equated success with non-stop work, expanding her platform, increasing her visibility, and making her voice heard. But as she sat here, reflecting on everything she had been through, she knew now that success could look like something different, something more sustainable. Her phone buzzed, snapping her out of her thoughts. It was a message from Anna. "Ready for your next chapter? Let's catch up soon." Eleanor smiled, her fingers hovering over the screen as she typed a response. "Definitely. I'm finding my rhythm again, just taking things one step at a time." Her conversation with Anna had been helpful. Anna had always been the pragmatic one, offering sound advice when Eleanor needed it most. After hearing about Eleanor's struggles with the intense demands of her growing platform, Anna had encouraged her to take a step back and recalibrate. Eleanor had realized that she couldn't continue to be everything for everyone. She had to prioritize herself. Over the last few weeks, Eleanor had been carefully crafting her approach to this new phase of her career. She had set boundaries, no more endless media appearances or last-minute speaking engagements. Instead, she decided to focus on what truly mattered, her community, her mission, and her mental health. She had always believed in the power of food as medicine, but she now saw that the food she needed most was a little bit of space to breathe, to reflect, and to realign with her values. Eleanor had spent years nurturing others, but it was time to start nurturing herself. One of the most important realizations she had come to during her break was that she didn't have to carry the burden of everything alone. For years, she had shouldered the weight of her mission, believing that the more she did, the more successful she would be. But the truth was, she could lean on the incredible team of people who had helped her along the way. It was time to delegate, to trust others to carry the load. Eleanor called her team together for a meeting. Sitting around the table with her were people she considered close friends, Anna, Jonah, and a few trusted colleagues who had helped her build her wellness platform from the ground up. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she began, her voice steady but earnest. "And I think it's time for me to reframe what success looks like. I'm not going to keep pushing myself to the brink anymore. It's about sustainability, and I want us all to find balance, too. We're not just a company or a platform, we're a community, and we need to act like it. That means I need to trust you all more and rely on you to take the lead in areas where I can't do everything." Anna gave her an encouraging nod, while Jonah smiled warmly. "I think that's a healthy shift, Eleanor. You've been carrying the weight of this on your shoulders for so long. It's time to let the team step up and help carry some of that weight. We're all in this together." It was a relief to finally verbalize her need for change. She had always felt like a one-woman army, but now, Eleanor was realizing that real strength came from building a community of people who supported each other. As the meeting continued, they discussed new ways to engage with their audience. The focus wasn't going to be just about spreading her message far and wide, it was going to be about quality, not quantity. Less was more. More thoughtful, meaningful content. More interactive sessions with the people who truly cared about her approach. More time to cultivate real relationships rather than superficial ones. A few days later, Eleanor attended a local wellness retreat in a quiet town upstate. She had been invited by a friend to speak at the event, and it was exactly what she needed, a chance to step back, connect with like-minded individuals, and recharge in a peaceful environment. The retreat was small, intimate. The atmosphere was different from the large conferences and crowded events she had grown accustomed to. The attendees were present, not distracted by their phones or the expectations of social media. There was time for real conversations and reflection, something Eleanor hadn't realized she had been missing until now. After a thoughtful meditation session, Eleanor took a walk along the retreat's grounds, a cool breeze brushing her face. She felt the tension in her body begin to melt away. This was what it felt like to truly reconnect, to be present. There was no pressure here to perform. She didn't have to impress anyone. She just had to be herself. As she walked back to the main building, her mind cleared, and she realized that this feeling of peace was something she wanted to bring into her life more often. It wasn't about doing more, it was about doing what mattered most and doing it with intention. When she returned home, Eleanor made a decision. She was going to refocus on the things that brought her joy, her community, her health, and the simple act of sharing her knowledge without the pressure of constantly seeking validation. Her social media posts would no longer be driven by the need for likes and shares. Instead, she would focus on creating meaningful connections, whether that was through intimate online events or small community gatherings. She didn't need the spotlight anymore, she needed a platform that allowed her to be present in her own life. Eleanor also made a pact with herself: every month, she would take at least one weekend to fully disconnect. No emails, no messages, no work. Just time to restore her energy and enjoy the simple pleasures of life. As she sat back down at her desk the next day, Eleanor felt a sense of relief wash over her. The road ahead would still be challenging, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was in control. She didn't need to chase after every opportunity or sacrifice her well-being for the sake of success. She knew that true success wasn't measured by the number of followers or the size of the audience. It was measured by the depth of the impact she had on the people she was meant to help, and the authenticity with which she showed up for them. Eleanor's phone buzzed again, the familiar ping of an email notification. She glanced at the screen and saw the name that made her heart skip a beat: James Winters, the CEO of Global Health Solutions. Her first instinct was to ignore it. After all, she'd made a commitment to herself to step back from chasing the next big thing. But curiosity won out, and she opened the message. Dear Eleanor, I hope this message finds you well. I've been following your work closely and I must say, I'm impressed by your commitment to both your mission and your audience. We at Global Health Solutions believe that your voice could make a significant impact on the future of wellness. We would love to discuss a potential collaboration that could take your platform to new heights. Looking forward to hearing from you soon. Best. James Winters, CEO, Global Health Solutions. Eleanor sat back in her chair, staring at the email. She had heard of Global Health Solutions. They were one of the largest wellness corporations in the world. They had a massive platform, with the resources to elevate any brand they partnered with. But that was part of the problem. She knew exactly what such a collaboration would entail: a whirlwind of media appearances, promotional events, and constant engagement. It was the kind of opportunity she had once dreamed of, but now, it felt like a potential trap. Do I really want this? Eleanor whispered to herself, her hand hovering over the keyboard as she considered how to respond. The reality was that this was the kind of opportunity that could explode her brand, bringing her message to millions of people and opening doors she had once thought closed. But the questions nagged at her: what would she have to give up to make it happen? How much of her personal life would she have to sacrifice? How much control would she lose over her own narrative? As Eleanor pondered, she thought back to the weeks after her break. The time she had taken to recharge had been transformative. She had reconnected with her core values, found her sense of peace, and made a promise to herself that she would never again sacrifice her well-being for the sake of success. Now, this new opportunity threatened to pull her back into the chaos. Her phone buzzed again, breaking her thoughts. It was a message from Jonah. "How's it going? Did you hear back from James Winters yet? I know this could be a big deal." Eleanor hesitated. Jonah was right. It could be a game changer. But at what cost? She leaned back in her chair, trying to assess the situation logically. Over the past few months, she had made the conscious decision to prioritize her mental health and personal connections. She had cultivated a sense of balance that allowed her to feel grounded. Would this partnership tip the scale too far in the other direction? Was she prepared to lose that balance again? Taking a deep breath, Eleanor opened her notes app and began to list the pros and cons. Pros: global exposure and reach. Significant financial backing and resources. Ability to impact a larger audience with her wellness message. Opportunity to collaborate with like-minded experts in the wellness field. Cons: potential loss of control over her brand and message. Overwhelming travel and media appearances. Risk of falling back into the hustle mentality she had worked so hard to escape. Less time for personal connections, family, and self-care. As Eleanor looked over the list, the balance seemed obvious. The cons outweighed the pros. She had already learned that true success was not about fame or money, it was about meaningful impact, community, and personal fulfillment. If she took this opportunity, she would risk everything she had worked to protect: her well-being, her sense of self, and her mission. But there was a lingering thought, a voice that whispered, what if? What if this was the breakthrough she had been waiting for? What if this was her chance to make a larger impact than she ever could on her own? The thought of turning it down felt like walking away from an incredible opportunity, but Eleanor knew deep down that she couldn't let that fear of missing out cloud her judgment. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was Anna. "Eleanor, I know you're probably overthinking this," as usual winking face, "but I just want to remind you of what you've been talking about lately. You've built something amazing on your own terms. Don't lose sight of that. Remember why you started in the first place. Don't let someone else define your path." Eleanor smiled softly at the message. Anna always knew how to put things into perspective. It wasn't about the opportunity, it was about staying true to herself and the vision she had for her life and career. She had already created something meaningful, and it didn't need a major corporation to validate it. She validated it. Taking a deep breath, Eleanor closed her laptop. She knew what she had to do. With one final glance at the email, she composed her reply. "Dear Mr. Winters, thank you for your kind words and the generous offer. I have given this a lot of thought, and while I truly appreciate the opportunity, I've come to the conclusion that I need to continue pursuing my mission on my own terms. I believe that the path I am on right now is the one that is most aligned with my personal values and the impact I wish to create. I wish you and Global Health Solutions continued success, and I hope we can find other ways to collaborate in the future. Best regards. Eleanor Harper." Eleanor hit send, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. The decision had been hard, but she knew it was the right one. She had already built something powerful by being true to her principles, and that was worth far more than any external validation could ever provide. The next day, Eleanor spent time with her team, discussing upcoming projects that felt right for her mission. They brainstormed new ways to connect with their community, small, intimate events that would allow her to truly engage with people on a deeper level. She realized that, while the global spotlight might be appealing, she didn't need it to make a difference. As Eleanor looked ahead, she knew that the road wouldn't always be easy. There would be other opportunities, other temptations to chase bigger platforms and faster success. But she was learning that true fulfillment came from balance, authenticity, and staying grounded in what mattered most. The morning after Eleanor's decision, the air felt different. Lighter, more expansive. She had no doubt that turning down global health solutions was the right choice, but there was something even more profound that was settling in her chest. The clarity she had gained over the past few months was now solidified. She had chosen to own her path, and she could feel the ripples of that decision already starting to affect the people around her. Later that day, Eleanor hosted a live Q&A session for her followers, something she hadn't done in weeks. It was a small, intimate gathering, but the response was overwhelming. People didn't just tune in, they interacted, asked meaningful questions, and shared personal stories of how her wellness journey had influenced their own. For the first time in months, Eleanor felt a deep connection to her community. She wasn't just broadcasting her message to a faceless audience, she was engaging in real, human conversations with people who truly cared. One of the messages that stood out to her came from Lily, a woman in her late 50s who had been following Eleanor's work since the beginning. "Eleanor, I just want to thank you. I've been struggling with my health and mental well-being for years, and your story has given me the courage to take control of my own life. I've started making small changes, and for the first time in a long time, I feel hopeful again. Thank you for being real and showing us that balance is possible." Reading Lily's message, Eleanor felt a surge of gratitude. This was why she had started her journey, to help people, to show them that they didn't have to live in constant hustle and burnout. And here it was, right in front of her, a real, tangible example of how her message was affecting lives. As the Q&A session continued, Eleanor's inbox flooded with more heartfelt messages from others who shared similar stories. One woman had stopped taking anxiety medication after embracing Eleanor's approach to holistic health. Another had finally found the courage to leave a toxic job and start her own business, something she'd been too afraid to do for years. Eleanor smiled softly, a deep sense of fulfillment washing over her. It was moments like this that reminded her of the power of small steps, the power of showing up and being present. It wasn't about grand gestures or massive partnerships, it was about authenticity and consistency. The ripple effect of her choices was creating waves of change, not just for herself, but for others as well. The next morning, Eleanor received a call from Anna. "Eleanor, I've been hearing a lot of buzz lately, people are noticing the shift in your content. The way you're connecting with your community, it's different. You're reaching people on a deeper level, and it's resonating. Your audience can tell that you're doing this on your own terms, and it's inspiring." Eleanor's heart swelled with warmth at her friend's words. "I can feel it, Anna. I've had more messages in the past few days than I've had in the last few months. It's like a chain reaction. People are connecting with the message, and I'm connecting with them." Anna laughed softly on the other end of the line. "That's the ripple effect, my friend. When you're true to yourself, it has a way of creating momentum. People feel that authenticity, and it draws them in. You've created something that's bigger than just you now. It's about community. It's about real, human connections." Eleanor felt a sense of pride wash over her. This was what she had always wanted, to create something meaningful, something that went beyond her own personal success. She hadn't realized it at the time, but by taking a step back and re-evaluating her path, she had built a foundation that was far stronger than anything she could have accomplished by chasing after the next big opportunity. Over the next few weeks, Eleanor continued to focus on building her platform through these smaller, more intimate connections. She held workshops, one-on-one coaching sessions, and live-streamed events, where the conversation wasn't just about wellness, it was about living in alignment with one's values. She started offering mentorships to people who were just starting their own journeys, hoping to pass on the lessons she had learned over the years. What Eleanor realized was that these experiences were far more fulfilling than the flashy events she used to chase. She was truly helping people, not just promoting products or ideas for the sake of visibility. And she was doing it at her own pace, with intention and care. As her community grew, Eleanor began to see the ripple effect extend beyond her audience. One of her followers, a woman named Sophie, had started a small wellness blog to share her personal journey of healing. Sophie's blog was raw and vulnerable, and it resonated with countless others who were going through similar struggles. She reached out to Eleanor, sharing her gratitude for the inspiration Eleanor had provided. "Your story gave me the courage to step out from behind the curtain," Sophie wrote in her message. "I've been hiding for years, too scared to share my story. But your authenticity made me realize that the world needs real voices, not just perfect ones." Eleanor replied, encouraging Sophie to continue sharing her journey. "Your voice matters, Sophie. Keep writing, keep sharing. You're making a difference, one person at a time." As Eleanor looked at the growing network of people who were inspired by her journey, who were creating their own ripples in the world, she realized that this was what it was all about. It wasn't about big brands or massive platforms. It was about connection and empowerment. The more people she helped, the more she felt like she was fulfilling her purpose. A month later, Eleanor received a message from her mentor, David, who had been a guiding voice in her life from the very beginning. "I see you, Eleanor. I see the growth and the change. What you're doing now is exactly what I always believed you were capable of. Keep following your heart. You're creating something that will continue to impact generations to come." Eleanor read his message and felt tears well up in her eyes. This was what it was all about. Not the fame or the accolades, but the quiet, steady work that rippled out into the world, touching lives in ways she couldn't always see. Eleanor knew she wasn't done yet. The ripple effect was just beginning, and she was determined to continue creating positive change. Her mission had become clearer than ever. To live authentically, help others do the same, and build a community that was founded on love, balance, and genuine connection. In the next chapter, Eleanor faces a pivotal moment where the impact of her work takes on new dimensions. She will be challenged in ways she never expected, but the lessons from her journey will guide her through. The steady hum of Eleanor's office became almost soothing as she sat back in her chair, reviewing the latest feedback from her community. After months of hard work, her platform had grown into something she was incredibly proud of, a space where people could come to share their struggles, triumphs, and journey to wellness. But even with all the progress she had made, there was something she hadn't anticipated. The weight of the past was still there, lingering beneath the surface, ready to resurface at the least expected moment. It was an ordinary Tuesday afternoon when the email came through. At first, Eleanor thought it was just another routine update from her management team or a brand collaboration offer. But when she saw the name at the top of the email, her breath caught in her throat. Subject: a message from Max. Eleanor's heart stopped for a moment. Max. Her ex-fiancé. The man who had once been the center of her world, the one she thought would be her partner through everything. Their breakup had been tumultuous, filled with bitterness and regret. Eleanor had worked hard to move past it, to let go of the pain and resentment, and to focus on building a new life for herself. But the past had a way of sneaking up on her, especially when it was something as powerful as Max. She hesitated for a moment, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. Could she really open this? Should she? But then, curiosity got the better of her. She clicked the message open. Eleanor. I know this may come as a surprise, but I've been thinking a lot about our past and the time we spent together. I never thought I'd reach out, but something inside me told me that I needed to. I've been going through some personal changes and, for the first time in years, I realize how much I hurt you. I was selfish, and I never really understood the toll our relationship took on you. I've spent a lot of time reflecting, and I just wanted to say I'm sorry. If you're open to it, I'd love to talk more, just to get some closure, if nothing else. Max. Eleanor stared at the email for a long moment, her mind racing. She had not expected this, hadn't prepared for it. In fact, she had spent years building her life around the idea that she would never have to face Max again. She had convinced herself that her personal growth and her sense of balance had come from moving forward, not from looking back. But now, here he was, reaching out, wanting to talk. To apologize. Her mind spun with 1,000 conflicting thoughts. On one hand, She knew the old Eleanor would have jumped at the chance to hear him out. She would have wanted to fix things, to find a way to make sense of what had happened between them. But the woman she had become over the past year, the one who had learned to prioritize herself, her peace, and her boundaries, wasn't sure if this was something she needed in her life. Should I respond? Eleanor muttered to herself, scrolling back to the message again. Her phone rang suddenly, and she jumped in surprise. It was Anna. Of course, it was Anna. She knew her friend better than anyone, and Eleanor didn't have to say anything for Anna to know exactly what was going on. Eleanor, I saw the email. You've got to be kidding me, Anna said, her voice a mix of disbelief and concern. Do you really want to go down this road again? After everything you've been through, do you really need him back in your life? Eleanor leaned back in her chair, unsure of how to respond. I don't know, Anna. Part of me wants closure. Part of me just wants to move on and not deal with it. But what if there's something I'm missing? What if this is the final piece of the puzzle I've been looking for? Anna sighed, her voice softer now. Listen, I get that you're trying to make sense of everything. But sometimes, the hardest thing to do is to let go. And it sounds like you've already done that. You found peace in your own way, Eleanor. Don't let him pull you back into a place where you're questioning everything again. Eleanor closed her eyes, her fingers brushing the edges of her phone. She could hear the wisdom in Anna's words. She had worked so hard to get to this place, a place where she no longer needed anyone's approval or validation. But at the same time, there was a part of her that still wanted to make sense of her past with Max. The wound had never truly healed. Maybe it was the last step toward true closure. But was this the right moment? Was reopening that chapter really the healthiest thing for her? After everything she had learned, about prioritizing her health, her relationships, and her own growth, Eleanor wasn't sure if confronting Max would help her or set her back. She glanced at her phone again. The blinking cursor on her email draft seemed to mock her indecision. She didn't have to answer him immediately. There was no rush. But the question lingered in the back of her mind, would talking to him change anything? Would it bring peace, or would it reopen old wounds? In the end, Eleanor decided to take a walk. She needed space to think and clear her mind. As she walked through the park, the familiar sounds of nature, birds chirping, children playing in the distance, grounded her. She focused on her breath, allowing her mind to wander freely, but also to center herself in the moment. She had spent so much of her life being reactive, letting external forces dictate her choices. Now, she needed to find her own center once again. After walking for a while, Eleanor sat on a bench, pulling out her phone. She opened the email once more, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. It was time to make a decision. With a deep breath, Eleanor composed her response. Max. Thank you for reaching out. I appreciate your apology and the honesty behind it. I've done a lot of work over the past few years, and I've learned a lot about myself in the process. I've learned that some chapters in life are meant to stay closed, and that's okay. I don't think there's anything to be gained by reopening old wounds. I wish you the best on your journey, and I hope you continue to grow. But for now, I'm moving forward with mine. Take care. Eleanor. She hit send, a sense of peace settling in her chest. It wasn't easy, but it was the right choice. Eleanor had learned the hard way that closure didn't always come from having a conversation. Sometimes, it came from making peace with where you were and letting go of what you couldn't change. As she looked out at the horizon, Eleanor realized that the unforeseen test wasn't just about confronting Max, it was about trusting herself to make the right decisions, even when it was difficult. She didn't need to revisit the past to move forward. The future was hers to create, and it was already unfolding beautifully. The decision to close the chapter on her past with Max had given Eleanor a sense of finality, but it also marked the beginning of something new. The freedom she had once only imagined was now becoming her reality, and with it came a deep understanding of what it meant to live authentically. Eleanor had spent so much of her life trying to appease others, trying to be what the world expected her to be. But now, she knew that the only person she truly needed to be was herself. And that realization had unlocked a sense of inner peace she had never known before. The next few weeks were a blend of reflection and action. Eleanor's work with her community had evolved. She wasn't just sharing tips on wellness anymore, she was walking the talk, encouraging others to do the same. It was one thing to offer advice on living with intention, but it was another to demonstrate it through every decision she made. One afternoon, as Eleanor was preparing for a new wellness workshop, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Sophia, a woman who had attended one of her past workshops. Sophia had been struggling with balancing her work and personal life, and Eleanor had taken the time to offer personalized advice on how to manage stress and set healthy boundaries. "Eleanor, I can't thank you enough for everything. Since our session, I've made so many changes, small ones, but they're starting to add up. I left my corporate job and decided to go into something that makes me truly happy, painting. It's been scary, but I feel more alive than ever. Your encouragement made me believe that I deserve a life I love, not just one I tolerate. Thank you so much for your guidance." Eleanor read the message, a smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. This was why she had made the changes she had. It wasn't just about sharing knowledge, it was about empowering others to take the leap and trust themselves. Seeing others embrace their true selves was the most fulfilling part of her journey. But even as Eleanor reveled in the joy of seeing others thrive, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was still more for her to discover. The sense of peace she had gained over the past year was deep, but there was a stillness within her that hinted at untapped potential. Perhaps it was the weight of her experiences, or maybe it was the growth she had undergone, but Eleanor knew one thing for sure: her path was still unfolding. True mastery, she realized, was a continual journey, not a destination. A few weeks after her conversation with Sophia, Eleanor received an invitation to speak at a conference for wellness professionals. The event would bring together some of the most influential names in the industry. It was an honor, but it also left her feeling conflicted. Eleanor had never been one to chase fame or recognition. She had always believed in doing the work because it was the right thing to do, not because it would bring accolades. But the more she thought about it, the more she realized that this was an opportunity to expand her impact. The idea of sharing her story on such a grand scale was a little daunting, but Eleanor had grown so much over the past year. She was ready for this new challenge. The day of the conference arrived, and Eleanor found herself standing backstage, waiting for her turn to speak. The grand ballroom was filled with professionals from all walks of life, people who had spent years studying wellness, working with clients, and developing programs. As she watched the other speakers deliver their talks, Eleanor couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude. She had come so far from the woman who had doubted her own worth and questioned her purpose. Now, she was standing here, preparing to share her message with an audience that would be listening intently to every word. When Eleanor's turn finally came, she walked up to the podium with a steady heart. The spotlight shone down on her as she took a deep breath. Her mind was clear, her message unwavering. She began by sharing her personal journey, how she had gone from burnout to balance, from living for others to living for herself. She spoke of the challenges she had faced, the mistakes she had made, and the lessons she had learned along the way. But more than anything, she spoke of hope, the belief that change was always possible, no matter how difficult it seemed at the time. As wellness professionals, we often talk about the importance of health, mindfulness, and well-being, she said, her voice steady. But what I've learned is that true wellness begins within. It begins with understanding who we are and what we need. It begins with the courage to make hard decisions, even when we don't know what the outcome will be. And it starts with letting go of the things that no longer serve us, so we can create space for what truly matters. Eleanor paused for a moment, her gaze sweeping over the audience. She could see the nods, the thoughtful expressions, the deep breaths from people who were clearly resonating with her words. I'm not here to offer a one-size-fits-all solution. But what I can offer is this: the path to wellness is not linear. It's messy, unpredictable, and sometimes downright scary. But it's also beautiful. And if we're willing to trust ourselves, to lean into our growth, we can create lives that are meaningful and fulfilling. When she finished, the room erupted into applause. Eleanor stood there, overwhelmed by the energy in the room. This wasn't just about recognition, it was about connection. She had shared her truth, and in return, the audience had connected with it. Later that evening, as Eleanor sat in her hotel room, reflecting on the day, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. This was what she had been working toward, not just the recognition, but the opportunity to inspire others to take ownership of their own lives, to create their own path forward. Her journey wasn't about achieving perfection, it was about embracing imperfection and learning to move forward with each new experience. She had found the courage to walk away from a life that wasn't hers, and in doing so, had created a life that was true to herself. In the days that followed, Eleanor continued to engage with her community, sharing her experiences and learning from others. She had begun to realize that her work was no longer just about her, it was about everyone she could reach, everyone she could help discover their own authentic path. Her journey had come full circle. She had embraced her truth, learned to let go, and stepped into a future that was hers to create. The next chapter was wide open, and Eleanor was ready to step into it with confidence. The weeks that followed Eleanor's talk at the wellness conference felt like a blur. The experience had been transformative, not just for her audience, but for herself as well. She had shared her vulnerability and, in return, had received an overwhelming amount of support and validation. But despite all the encouragement and the success she was experiencing, Eleanor couldn't shake the feeling that something new was calling to her. She had come so far, and yet she felt there was another layer of growth waiting just beyond her reach. It started with a phone call. It was David, the director of the wellness program at a renowned global health organization. Eleanor had met him briefly at the conference, and although they had only exchanged a few words, David was impressed by her authenticity and approach to wellness. "Eleanor, I've been following your journey for some time now," David began, his voice warm but direct. "I think you have an incredible message, and your work could have a far-reaching impact. Our organization is planning a new initiative to address holistic wellness on a global scale, and we'd love for you to be a part of it." Eleanor's heart skipped a beat. She had always dreamed of expanding her impact beyond the local community, but this was bigger than anything she had imagined. The opportunity to work with a global organization could open doors she hadn't even considered. It was the kind of challenge she had longed for, but at the same time, it felt like stepping into the unknown. David continued, "The role would involve speaking at international forums, working with wellness experts from around the world, and contributing to the development of a comprehensive wellness program that will reach millions of people. I believe you're exactly the kind of leader we need for this project. What do you think?" Eleanor's mind raced. She had been content with her current path, working from home, managing her platform, building meaningful connections. She had created a space that felt comfortable and familiar. But the idea of stepping onto a global stage was a whole new ballgame. Was she ready for this? Her first instinct was to say yes, to dive into this new opportunity, to prove to herself that she could take on such a monumental challenge. But the more she thought about it, the more she realized that the decision wasn't just about ambition, it was about growth. Would she be stretching herself in a healthy way, or would she be pushing herself beyond her limits for the sake of external validation? Eleanor sat down at her desk, her fingers hovering over her keyboard. She knew she needed time to think. The old version of herself would have jumped at the chance without question. But the new Eleanor, the one who had learned to honor her limits, who had embraced self-compassion, knew that this decision had to be about more than just a career opportunity. She called Anna, her trusted friend and confidant, to help her process this pivotal moment. As soon as the call connected, Anna's voice was full of warmth. "So, what's going on? I heard you've got a big offer on the table," Anna said. Eleanor chuckled, but there was a note of uncertainty in her voice. "Yeah, I do. It's from this global wellness organization. They want me to speak at international forums, help shape their wellness initiatives. It's huge, Anna. I feel like it could be everything I've been working toward. But at the same time, I'm not sure if it's the right move for me. I've spent so long building something that feels aligned with my values. What if this takes me off course? Anna's response was thoughtful. I get it. It's tempting to jump into something that feels like the next logical step. But you know yourself better than anyone. Are you chasing this because it feels like the right opportunity, or because you feel like you have to take it? You've built a foundation of authenticity. Is this opportunity in alignment with your true self, or is it just an opportunity for external recognition? Eleanor paused, taking in her friend's words. It wasn't just about the opportunity. It was about the impact she wanted to create. But more importantly, it was about creating a life that felt authentic to her, not one that was driven by societal expectations or the desire for accolades. I want to grow, Anna, Eleanor said quietly. I want to push myself beyond what I thought was possible. But I don't want to lose myself in the process. I've worked so hard to create something meaningful, and I want that to stay at the center of everything I do. Anna's voice softened. You've come so far, Eleanor. You don't have to say yes to everything that comes your way. But if this feels like the next step for you, and you can stay true to your values in the process, then go for it. You've earned the right to step into a bigger stage, but only if it feels like it's in line with the life you've worked so hard to create. Eleanor smiled, feeling the weight of her friend's wisdom. You're right. I don't need to rush into this. I'll take some time to really reflect on whether this aligns with who I am now and where I want to go. The next few days were filled with quiet reflection. Eleanor took long walks in the park, journaled about her goals and desires, and meditated on the future she wanted to create. Slowly, she began to realize that the decision wasn't about rejecting or accepting the opportunity, it was about making a conscious choice to move forward with purpose. As she reflected, Eleanor realized that she could continue to build her wellness platform while taking on this new challenge. It wasn't about sacrificing her values for external validation, it was about bringing those values with her to a larger stage. She could expand her reach without losing sight of her authenticity. With clarity in her heart, Eleanor called David back. I've thought it over, she said, her voice steady. I'd love to be part of your initiative. But I want to be clear that my approach to wellness is rooted in authenticity, mindfulness, and respect for personal boundaries. I believe in holistic growth, both for myself and for the people I work with. If that resonates with your vision, I'm all in. David's response was immediate. Absolutely. That's exactly the kind of approach we're looking for. We're thrilled to have you on board. Eleanor hung up the phone, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. This was the beginning of something new, something bigger. But it wasn't just about stepping into a new role, it was about stepping into her true potential, knowing that her values would guide her every step of the way. As Eleanor stood at the edge of this new horizon, she knew that the journey ahead would be challenging. But it would also be empowering. She was ready to meet this challenge head-on, with the confidence that no matter where it took her, she would always be true to herself. The sun was setting over the horizon as Eleanor sat on the balcony of her apartment, sipping her tea and watching the sky change from a soft amber to a deep violet. It had been several months since she had joined the Global Wellness Initiative, and the changes in her life had been profound. The work had pushed her in ways she never imagined, taking her across continents and connecting her with people from all walks of life. It had been exhilarating, and exhausting, but more than anything, it had taught her just how much she was capable of. Eleanor had come a long way from the woman who had felt stuck, uncertain, and unsure of her place in the world. She had faced her fears, embraced her vulnerabilities, and chosen a path of authenticity, even when it felt like the world was telling her to take another route. Every challenge, every moment of self-doubt, had been a stepping stone toward a deeper understanding of herself and the kind of legacy she wanted to leave behind. As she reflected on her journey, Eleanor realized that the core of everything she had done was this: authenticity. Her decision to break away from a life that didn't align with her true self had been the turning point. That was the moment she started to live in a way that honored who she really was. It wasn't about perfection. It wasn't about following a prescribed formula for success. It was about showing up as herself, with all her imperfections, and allowing others to see that it was okay to do the same. Over the past months, Eleanor had delivered talks and workshops at international wellness forums, collaborated with experts, and created programs that had reached thousands of people. But what filled her with the most pride wasn't the number of followers or the accolades she received. It was the stories of transformation from the people she had helped along the way. One story in particular stood out. It was from Sophia, the woman who had left her corporate job to pursue painting after attending one of Eleanor's workshops. Sophia had sent Eleanor an update just weeks ago, detailing her journey. "I wanted to let you know, Eleanor," the message began, "that I've just completed my first solo art show. It's been such a ride, and I couldn't have done it without your encouragement to step outside my comfort zone. You showed me that my voice matters, that my art matters, and that I can create the life I want, even if it seems impossible." Eleanor's eyes welled up with tears as she read the message. This was the legacy she had been seeking, helping people find their own path, their own voice, and their own courage to live authentically. She didn't need to change the world in one sweeping gesture. She only needed to make a difference in the lives of the people who crossed her path. And in doing so, she was creating a ripple effect. A legacy of authenticity that would spread far beyond anything she could ever predict. But as much as Eleanor cherished the transformation she had witnessed in others, she knew that her own journey wasn't over. The world was ever-changing, and there would always be more to learn, more to experience, and more to contribute. The lessons of her journey were ongoing, but she felt a profound sense of peace knowing that she had created something lasting, not just in her work, but within herself. Her work with the Global Wellness Initiative had taken her to places she had once only dreamed of. She had spoken at conferences in Europe, facilitated workshops in Africa, and even helped launch a global online platform for mental and emotional wellness. The connections she had built over the past year had opened doors she never imagined, and the impact she had been able to make had exceeded her expectations. Yet, in all of this, Eleanor had never lost sight of the importance of her community. She had stayed rooted in her values of authenticity, connection, and compassion. Every decision she made, whether it was about her work or her personal life, had been guided by a deep commitment to staying true to herself. Now, Eleanor was sitting at the pinnacle of her journey, but she knew that success wasn't defined by how far she had come, it was about how true she had stayed to her vision. She had built a career, a life, and a community around the idea that wellness was more than just physical health. It was emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being. It was about living in alignment with who you really are. As she sipped her tea, Eleanor thought back to the question she had asked herself at the beginning of her journey: what does it mean to live authentically? She had spent years seeking the answer, but now she understood. To live authentically meant to embrace imperfection, to acknowledge that growth wasn't linear, and to honor the process of becoming, every step of the way. She had started with the simple idea that wellness meant being whole, mind, body, and spirit. But through her experiences, she had learned that true wellness went deeper than that. It was about allowing yourself to evolve, to stumble, and to rise again. It was about being honest with yourself, no matter how difficult the truth might be. And it was about embracing the uncertainty of life and trusting that every challenge was a chance to grow. Eleanor's legacy wasn't just about the programs she created or the impact she had on thousands of lives. It was about the example she set. One of authenticity, courage, and unwavering commitment to living in alignment with one's true self. She had shown the world that it was possible to walk away from a life that wasn't serving you, and in doing so, create a future that felt meaningful and fulfilling. As the night drew in and the stars began to twinkle in the sky, Eleanor felt a deep sense of gratitude. The journey had been hard, but it had also been beautiful. She had faced her fears, made mistakes, and learned some of life's toughest lessons. But she had done it all with courage and authenticity. The world would continue to change, and she would continue to evolve. But no matter where her path took her, Eleanor knew one thing for sure: her legacy would live on through the lives she had touched, the lessons she had shared, and the authenticity she had embraced. Her journey was far from over, but the foundation she had built, of living authentically and empowering others to do the same, would remain her guiding light, leading her forward into whatever came next. Thank you for following Eleanor's journey. Her story is a reminder that we all have the power to live authentically, to overcome our fears, and to create lives that are aligned with our true selves. Let this be the spark that ignites your own path forward. What will you do today to embrace your authenticity and step into your true potential? Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?